Rink Vancouver. Pre-game, post-game, every game presented by Bodog. From sports odds to free casino games, make a play at bodog.net. Wadden and JPat here with you once again with another edition of the pre-game show as the Canucks go from Big D into the Windy City, their lone visit to Chi-Town this season.
This is the only rink that they have not skated in this season. So, yeah, it completes that list, I suppose, for the Vancouver Canucks. They'll see the Blackhawks again in Vancouver in a week's time. So this is the second of three meetings. And, of course, the first time they faced Chicago was Rick Tocchet's coaching debut. The Canucks victorious that night. So they're trying to pick up where they left off last night in Dallas, one of their most complete efforts of the season. And we'll see if they can back it up with another one against the Blackhawks this afternoon.
Let's get to the lineup change. It's presented by Delaney's OK Tire out there in Fraser Highway in Langley. Expecting a change in goal, and I think we might see that new rookie.
Yeah, big Sunday for the Vancouver Canucks on the college hockey front. We're all anticipating that Aiden McDonough is going to make his long-awaited National Hockey League debut. The 23-year-old from Milton, Massachusetts, left Northeastern after his hockey season was done there and his college career was finished. He's been with the Canucks for a couple of weeks now, and it sounds like this is going to be the night that we see Aiden McDonough in a Vancouver Canuck uniform. Now, earlier in the day, the Canucks came to terms with Max Sasson, another college free agent, although McDonough wasn't a free agent. He was a draft pick of the Canucks, a seventh rounder back in 2019, but the Canucks did dip in to the college free agent waters. Max Sasson, a 22-year-old left shot center out of Western Michigan University, had 42 points this season. He's going to report directly to Abbotsford, so we won't see him make his NHL debut at any point this season, but he is in the Canucks fold. And as for goaltending change, we're all anticipating that it's going to be Colin Delaney, the former Blackhawk, who was in goal that night that Rick Tocchet took over. So he's already faced his former team once this year, got a victory then. Thatcher Demko played last night. Thatcher Demko has been busy, and he's been good in his return since injury. But we saw last week in Southern California, the Canucks split the net mining duties, and with the back-to-backs and a little bit of travel, I would anticipate that we see Colin Delia between the pipes at United Center tonight.
Canucks were really good last night against the Stars. Going to have to follow that up with a repeat performance against the Blackhawks.
Yeah, now the Hawks are a lesser opponent than the Stars. Just look at the standings. One is right up near the top. The other is right down there at the bottom. But this is 3 games in 4 nights for the Vancouver Canucks. It's back-to-back. We mentioned a little bit of travel. They're going to have their backup goaltender in net, although Colin Delia has been good when called upon for the most part this season. Whatever the case, the Canucks in no position to take anybody lightly. They're playing well. They're winning a bunch of hockey games, but it is the NHL, and on any given Sunday, I suppose, a lesser opponent can rise up. So the Canucks just have to try to duplicate what they did against the Stars, which was play really sound defensively. They were good on the penalty kill, obviously. There are still some areas of concern and some areas to work on over the final 10 games of the regular season year. But yeah, if they play anywhere close to the level they did in Dallas, should be able to get a victory in Chicago.
The Blackhawks, as you mentioned, were the first opponent that Rick Tocchet saw as the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. And boy, the Canucks have gone a long way since then.
Yeah, structure. Isn't that what Rick Tocchet was supposed to bring to this team? And we certainly saw it on display in Dallas last night. But that first night, Andrei Kuzmenko scored a couple of goals. Bo Horvat was still on the hockey team back then. And in fact, scored a shorthanded goal into an empty net. And that started that run of shorthanded goals that continued last night with Dakota Joshua scoring while the Canucks were a man short. So Rick Tocchet's been on the job. The Canucks have won a bunch more than they have lost. But yeah, it started with a win against the Chicago Blackhawks. So we'll see if he can get another one in this contest tonight.
We've seen how dangerous that penalty kill can be for the Canucks. However, that power play continues to sputter.
Oof, and last night, the minute and 12 seconds of 5-on-3 time, and they just stuck to the perimeter, passed the puck around, didn't get it to the front of the net, not many shots on goal. Power play 3 for its last 20. So Canucks are going off well shorthanded these days. In fact, they're far more dangerous, it seems, when they're down a man than when they're up a man. And yeah, the 5-on-3, you don't get a 5-on-3 every game, but 0 for 5 now on the season when they've had 2-man advantages. And last night, maybe the low point when it comes to that game state, because they just didn't look dialed in at all. So new night, new game, new opponent. And if they get power play opportunities, let's hope that they look a little bit better than they have here of late.
Let's focus in on that new opponent tonight, the Blackhawks, who are sputtering themselves right now and coming off a loss yesterday.
Fell 3-1 in Minnesota. It was tied into the late stages of the third period, and then the Minnesota Wild broke the tie, scored into an empty net, win it by a score of 3-1. This continues a trend, though, for the Chicago Blackhawks. They can't score. They can't win. They've lost 4 in a row, and in those 4, they've been outscored 8 18-4. So they're in a bit of a rut here and have been since the trade deadline when they packaged up and moved off a couple of key players. They have 3 victories in their last 14 hockey games. So, it's been a grind for the Blackhawks for much of this season, but certainly a diminished roster since the trade deadline. And as a result, 4 straight losses. And as I said, they've been outscored 18-4 in those hockey games.
Yeah, it's tough to score when you trade away your 2 top scorers, though.
Yeah, Patrick Kane, obviously a legacy player, second or third in all of the key statistical categories in Chicago Blackhawks franchise history. And we're talking about a storied franchise there. And of course, Max Domi was their scoring leader at the trade deadline. They made some other deals. Jake McCabe, Sam Lafferty, they were sent to Toronto. So this really is a stripped down roster that the Chicago Blackhawks are running out there. Do you have Taylor Radish in your hockey pool? For your sake, I hope you don't, but he is the Chicago Blackhawks leading scorer. He's their lone 20-goal man on the roster these days. 33 points is the highest score that the Chicago Blackhawks will have in their lineup tonight against the Canucks.
Where's Jason Dickinson at on that list, though? The former Canuck, of course, a Blackhawk now, is having himself a decent season.
Yeah, he's having the kind of year that I think the Canucks wished he had had a year ago. Of course, with what was left on the contract, they felt the best move was to ship him off to Chicago. They had to attach a second-round draft choice to do it, but 9 goals and 25 points for Jason Dickinson, sitting on 99 career points. So if he finds the score sheet tonight, career point number 100 against one of his former teams. Obviously, 25 points doesn't blow anybody out of the way, but when you look at the Canucks and their depth centers, whether it's Nils Amon, whether it's Sheldon Dries, Dickinson's 25 points certainly above those levels. So, he was brought in last year. The hope was that he was going to add to the penalty kill. That didn't happen. There was nothing there offensively, and so the Canucks did move him on. And they haven't missed him, I mean, let's be honest, but he has looked more like the player that I think he felt he could be this year in Chicago, obviously getting maybe a little more opportunity with the Blackhawks than he would have in Vancouver. Whatever the case, he's on the other side. The Canucks will see a familiar face in Jason Dickinson tonight.
And the Blackhawks are hoping to go from Taves and Kane to Connor Bedard.
They are very much in the hunt here in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. There's no doubt about it. There's really 4 teams now that have fallen so far off the pace that you're looking at those 4 teams. And now the question is, how is it all going to shake out when the dust settles here? Anaheim has 56 points. Chicago has 54 points. And then you've got Columbus and San Jose, both of them sitting with 53 points to bring up the rear of the National Hockey League standings. So the Blackhawks just a single point ahead of the Sharks and the Blue Jackets. 3 weeks to go in this regular season. So the race to the bottom is on, and the Chicago Blackhawks are very much in the mix.
Let's get to the stat that stands out. It's presented by Jason Hominick at Jason.Mortgage.
Yeah, this is a little bit of an obscure stat, but I do think it kind of paints the picture of the Vancouver Canucks in their season, coming off a win in Dallas last night, a season sweep of the Dallas Stars. The Canucks have gone 9-0 against the California teams. They have a couple of wins against the Colorado Avalanche this year. The Vancouver Canucks record against the Western Conference is absolutely an acceptable record to put them on the kind of pace that they would need to be in the playoffs. The trouble has been against the East. Now, they're done with the East. They played their 32 games against Eastern opponents, just 10 victories in those 32 games. But against the West, the Vancouver Canucks, 23-14-3. So they've handled themselves. They've fared well. As I mentioned, they had a win earlier this season against the Chicago Blackhawks. So that goes into that win column there with the 23 against the Western Conference. Canucks have been good in conference. They're just happy that they're done with the East because they had next to no success against the guys from the Eastern Conference.
Let's get to my Bodog Best Bet, and I've won my last 2 in a row. Feeling really good about this one. I got Quinn Hughes to record 2 or more points tonight at plus 160. He's had 4 multi-point games in March. He's got 20 on the season, JPat. This one feels like easy money for me. Run to Bodog and place that bet.
Yeah, haven't been many nights where Quinn Hughes has been held off the score sheet, but he was last night in Dallas, and we talked a little bit about the power play. That's usually where he heats things up, so can't imagine that he'll go quiet over the weekend here, so I like that one. I like him to bounce back. I like the hockey club to get Quinn Hughes involved in the offense, and so, I got a good feeling for this on this one for you tonight.
Perhaps Quinn Hughes could be this candidate who is going to do something in this game.
Well, sometimes we look to the guys that have gone ice cold and you just expect more. On occasion, though, I'll look to a guy that's on a hot streak and think, keep it up. do it again. And that's where I'm going with this one. Dakota Joshua has scored in back-to-back games, scored the shorthanded goal last night, scored that buzzer beater against the San Jose Sharks on Thursday night. If you think back to Rick Tocchet's first game as the head coach, he wasn't sure if this player's first name was Dakota or his last name was Dakota. But he got it figured out, but he did know that he liked this player because against the Blackhawks in that coaching debut, Rick Tocchet saw Dakota Joshua score a goal. He got into a fight as well that night. So he was involved in a number of facets in the hockey game, and he really hasn't let up under the coaching change. So Dakota Joshua has been doing some good things for the Vancouver Canucks, has not scored 3 in a row in his National Hockey League career. So a chance for him to do something that he has not done in his brief time in the NHL. So yeah, I'm looking at Dakota Joshua to stay on this hot streak, to keep up his run of fine play. He is my do something candidate for the Vancouver Canucks tonight.
All right, let's see if the Canucks can blow into the Windy City and blow out with a W. This has been another edition of the Rink Wide Vancouver podcast presented by Bodog. For Jeff Patterson, I'm Andrew Wadden. Remember, Rink Wide is the show that always scores.